items into a single consent agenda. Any board member may request that any or all items on the consent agenda be removed and considered as a separate item. If no such request is made, all items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single action of the Board of Trustees. Consent agenda for October 8th, 2018. Request approval of consent agenda items. Request for approval of board meeting minutes, September 10th, 2018. Request for approval of personnel resignations recommendations. Request for approval of docket of claims for September 2018. Request for approval of assignments and transfers. Request for approval of enrollment of out-of-state students whose parents are employees. Request for approval of release of students. Request for to accept use of donations and grants. Request for approval of special education contract with Mississippi Center for Autism and Related Developmental Disabilities Incorporated. Request for approval of affiliation agreement between Gulf Coast Pediatric Care and Pascagoula-Gautier School District. Request for approval of removal of equipment from inventory and disposal. Request for approval of declare surplus and advertise for sale. Request for approval to declare surplus and advertise for sale. Request for approval of construction change directive number 5, Trent Lott Academy and Central Office 2018 Improvements Project. Request for approval of application of certificates of payments. Request for approval of 2018-19 athletic supplements. Request for approval of single source purchase, Project Lead the Way. Request for approval of summer stipends. Request for approval of 1-year special non-renewable license, emergency license. Request for approval of 1-year educator license for veteran teachers, emergency license. School recognition program supplement approval. Request for approval of Title I, Part A, Improving Academic Achievement of the Disadvantaged Fund 2211, Title II, Improving Teacher Quality Fund 2511, Title IV, Student Support and Enrichment Program Fund 2811, and the Consolidated Administrative Cost Pool Fund 2290. Request for approval to award RFP for English Language Acquisition Software for kindergarten through 12th grade. Request for approval of final district-wide budget FY 17-18. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS and JRTC. Request for approval of overnight field trip, GHS, Drama Fest, USM. It's recommended that all items on the consent agenda be approved for October 8, 2018.
That's 26 items that we've all had opportunity to study and discuss. And is there any item that board members want to vote on separately? Hearing none, I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion in general on any of the items?
I have one on X. Has there been any revisions to that budget since the last time we saw it? Any changes?
What we do at the end of the fiscal year is...
You have the more accurate numbers?
Right. And
okay.
So, yeah, so we actually make the budget what actually happened in the year. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion items, questions?
There's an awful lot of work that's reflected in this, and I appreciate the work that y'all do back behind the scenes. I'm catching in several different opportunities this week. I've heard that you were successful in developing different, improving the programs and getting us more money, and so I'd like to thank you in particular for that. But I know there's a lot of other work that goes behind this. The question that I have, one question I have is the English language acquisition software.
Yes, sir.
Is that your?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We switch sometimes that program. Could you just discuss that?
We generally use Imagine Learning. That's what we have been using as a district. With the new ESSA laws and different amounts of money that we can spend, they have capped certain things, and when we go over, we have to put it out for RFP to make sure that it's a competitive process with federal funds. So that's why for the last 2 years you've seen it come up, that we bid it out, because we are such a large district. It goes over the $10,000 mark where we have to send it out for an RFP.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we're not really changing anything?
No, Imagine Learning has met the RFP for the best.
I don't want to change things. Sometimes it causes some confusion. but I know that we don't just do it on a lark if we do it.
No, sir.
Thank you.
Any other items of note? Have a question? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Mr. Robbins, we're ready for 3A, future construction projects.
Proposed future construction projects are attached with the funding plan to execute the projects. These projects are in line with the strategic plan and our continued effort to renovate and modernize Pascagoula-Gautier School District facilities.
This is, for board members, if you pull up the attachment, we have a recap of where the money's getting from and the 3, 6, 9, 10 projects. Big one being the replacement of the roof instead of the repair, with the idea that we'll take one of them at a time and get both high schools done. It's been, what are we working on, 20 years now? 97 to
22.
22 years you were there, Senator?
Yep.
22 years on the roof, so, and we found out when we had a catastrophe, I think it was last year, that the warranty expires when the first storm comes by, because it stretches the roof, stretches the washers and the screws that are holding it on. So, I was surprised, but that's, I don't have a metal roof on either of the houses, so it's, I always get an education. Now, any discussion on these projects that has been proposed here?
Well, just in general, a couple things. We're just approving the concept tonight, right? We're not, are you going to be, my question really is, this money that's, say, in child nutrition will stay in child nutrition until we need it, and then we'll transfer it out? Or?
That'll be part of the fiscal year 19 closeout. So
Pardon?
it'll be the part of the fiscal year 2019 closeout.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So we would close out, because I have to use this year's financial data to calculate the indirect cost.
Right.
This is what it would be for this year, just so we'd have a number
Right.
with 18.
Yeah, well, I was going through the budgets and I saw there's still, at least in the closeout budget, the money was still in the accounts, and I thought you would probably do it at some later point. But here again, you know, I also, was another conversation, Dr. Ketchens, and the way that y'all look for money and work through complicated agencies. Thank you so much. This the conversation deals around $400,000 in impact aid that you were able, as I understand, to obtain for us.
We're still waiting on the final number from
Right.
USDE and MDE, but that's an estimate they've given me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
On the roof replacement, then, that was the funding on. I do have questions. Maybe should I have them offline, you know, at another time, about what we intend to do for roof replacement? Just, maybe it's because I'm an engineer and we're having trouble, and we've got a detailed report. I don't know if the board would like to have a discussion later on about this, but it's almost a $3 million project, and I was disappointed that we were having the issues, and then I was told, well, you can expect it. And they're metal roofs, you know, and just in concept, we're told that metal roofs last forever, and for that reason, their cost is justified. But at some point, I'd like to have some conversation.
Well, if you're wanting to have a conversation around it, I think we need to do it pretty quick. Our next agenda item, sending that out to bid. So let's say we don't really have another time on.
Well, when it comes up,
Yeah, it won't go out for bid immediately, but
Okay.
that's normally the board authorization is essentially to get us going, and then we can advertise it when we need to versus having to request a separate approval. That's just historically been done that way. Could be done differently. We can talk about it tonight or,
yeah, okay,
At a
we'll
later
take it
date.
up, we'll take it up later when it comes up.
okay.
Mr. Kincannon, if no board member has anything to say, I'd like to make a statement. Do y'all have anything? For clarity for the public, so that the public's aware of where we are, during the course of closeout every year, anytime that we have any type of issue financially, and last year we had an issue financially because we did not have $4 million coming into our budget that we thought we were going to have. Due to that issue, we did pull back in different departments. Specifically here, we did not touch school budgets, but we did pull back up here on some of the things that we normally fund or go out and purchase for recurring expenses. As it relates to the indirect costs from child nutrition, federal programs, and IDEA, these are all dollars that we can pull administratively, that there is a line that we can pull from specifically for these programs. It is a revenue funding source for us as a district. We have not pulled the full value of what we could have pulled out of child nutrition. It's nominal for the other two programs. Something that's very important to remark on in speaking to Dr. Ketchings, he is our federal programs director, and he is responsible for everything to do with federal programs. But sometimes you have people who are very good at what they do, and I want to publicly compliment him, because every child that we had as a refugee from Puerto Rico, from the storm, he documented from the day they got here till the day they left, or if they're still here. The federal government provides us money for each of those students. Now, we didn't know this was going to occur the way that it did, but it did. So we're able to, and we're looking at that as the bottom end of a potential funding opportunity for the district there. Going on down to the fund balance increase, that has several factors that are involved in it, but at the end of the day, let's go back to the meeting when we approved our Center for Performing Arts, or Performing Arts Center for Pascagoula. There was great concern by the board about having roofs that needed to be repaired, that were leaking. And so whenever we saw an opportunity, after going back through and looking at what we could return to this year's budget, and knowing that we were going to spend, I guess, $1 to $2 million or $2 to $3 million on roof repairs for both schools, we felt like we could take this opportunity, because nothing's going to get cheaper in the future. It's only going to become more expensive, and we've learned that through some of the buildings that we've constructed. So we see an opportunity there with this PHS roof replacement, and following up next year with the GHS roof replacement. And here's what's important about the board's role in it. These represent two of the most substantial capital improvements that need to be made in this district for the next 10 years or so. Now we've become a lot smaller in the scope of work that we'll have to do to improve roofs on buildings, and we'll be able to get to some other projects that we wanted to do. So there is some money that was returned to the budget from last year, but there's also some extra things that have been incorporated into this funding source to do these projects. The architect will not have several of these projects. These will be done at a smaller level where we won't require there to be an architect fee to go along with it. So there's a savings there as well on that. It is a time-sensitive issue. Specifically, the softball dugouts are time-sensitive. We have been trying to redo our young ladies' dugouts now for years. We see a window of opportunity. We're just hoping we can get the right masons in place to do that work for us. And that's been our challenge over the last several years. But these are all good projects, and I just wanted to make sure if the board had any questions related to the funding or why we're doing what we're doing from a priority standpoint, then I can clarify that.
Any more discussion from the board? I don't have a note that I put a motion on the floor, so
Motion to approve.
thank you, sir.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Get rid of this so I can find the thing. This is the item you were talking about, Matt.
The administration has determined they need to replace the roof at Pascagoula High School. The scope of the project will include retrofit existing roof by installing new insulation and new metal standing seam roof system. Mr. Richard McNeil, JVH Architect, has requested authorization to proceed with additional services required for this project to be advertised and bid. The budgeted costs are estimated between $2.3 million and $2.6 million. Bids will be presented at a later date to the board for approval. It's recommended the Board of Trustees approve to advertise and accept bids for the Pascagoula High School roof replacement project.
Do I hear a motion to?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Discuss this item. You obviously have something you want to discuss, Matt.
No, I didn't. I was saying when Mr. Marks said that he may possibly like to talk about it at a later date, I was just bringing to everyone's attention the fact that.
Today's the later date.
Yes, that was my comment.
All right.
Well, you know, we've installed a metal roof, and now we're going to, and we have problems with it. We had problems before even a 20-year span was concluded. Are we taking into consideration the unique problems that we had, and adding I don't know whether you call it safeguards or whether you call it additional improved materials, or just if you would, one of the comments, and I should, just to show my ignorance, is on metal roofs. I thought was the best metal roof had the screws that hold the roof to the frame underneath the next panel that came. The roofs that we have exterior screws all up and down the building, and on each panel, on the edges of each panel, and possibly even in between if the span is very far. And those were a source of leak. Are we doing something to?
So we're not gonna use the exposed fastener kind because of exactly the problems you're having now. That's probably the lowest end metal roof you can do. If you have a metal building project, which is essentially what the high schools are, that's essentially the type of roof that comes. But a retrofit situation, essentially what you do, and I think we actually have some photos or kind of some assembly, pictures of construction that we did as part of that roofing analysis report, but we can send those out, send to the board. But essentially what you have is what's called a roof hugger system. So there's a new piece of metal that installs through to the structure, and we will essentially, it comes up maybe 4 inches above your existing roof that's there. And so it's almost like, just think of it like new structure, like a new deck, if you will. And then the space I've now got, so I'm leaving my existing roof in place. I'm going to have this series of structure along the roof. I'm going to stuff that full of insulation now, so I don't have condensation issues. It also helps me get more R value out of my roof, and I'm going to put a new roofing system on top of all of that. Now, what you do, and that's what we call standing seam system, you put down, it's usually a 16-inch wide, sometimes 24-inch wide panel. It's got anchors, so I've got these roof huggers. I anchor each one down, I anchor the panel down, and then I actually mechanically seam it together. So I have, and I have to send you a picture, but there's a standing seam here. I slide my new panel in, and then it has basically a double crimp lock seam. You have to have a machine to do that, so that at the end of the day, you don't have any exposed fasteners. And that entire system is not just fastened to the roof, it's all the way down to the roofing structure that's there. So I mean, it's a good, roofing system. That's really what you want to do. Anytime you have an existing building or you're in a retrofit situation, you have fewer options. So the alternative, you can do what's called a single ply membrane, which would be, like a TPO or a modified bitumen roof, kind of like a flat roofing system. They don't look very good. That's really the main reason we would probably not want to go that route, just because it's going to be an ugly roof. In those high schools, you got a lot of roof. So yeah, I think roofing technology's come a long way since those were installed in 20 years, but I would also say you probably don't have, the Cadillac roof to begin with, necessarily, so that's, didn't help things.
The color, are they gonna vary, were we gonna vary the color?
Probably not at Gaucher, just because we've got the addition that's there that will not have to be re-roofed. So, I mean, you could change the color, but you wouldn't be able to change the color on that.
This is the Pascagoula.
Yeah, that's right. Pascagoula, you could change the color if you wanted to. And that just depends on your roofing manufacturer and what options they have, but there's 20 different colors normally. So,
What about, we had trouble wherever a pipe went through. What do you call the,
Penetrations?
it's
But
penetration
each-
or roofing.
that was another source, the material either lost its seal, if it was a caulking or something, or that the actual
Yeah.
penetration material corroded, but there were problems there.
Yeah, we'll have to rework all of those things as we're working it, and essentially there's kind of a two-fold system. So you have an initial, piece of flashing at the penetration, and then you have another shroud that will install above that. So all those flashings will be reworked as part of the project. Essentially everything you'll see will be brand new.
But
essentially.
should the life of those last longer than we're having, as I remember the report, we're having pretty serious issues with some of those. Was it an installation issue that caused the problem that we have, or was it a choice of materials? Are we going to, if the roof is solid and the screws don't leak, but each of the penetrations leak, you still have a problem. I was just curious, is there a way to address those?
There are better ways, and again, that's just advances in technology and better methods of doing things. We weren't involved in the original roof, so I'm not sure if they just weren't watching them close. I don't know.
No,
20 years of sunshine doesn't do good
No,
things.
not
to
to a rubber boot.
And the wind load has changed too since that other roof was put on. We go at a higher wind rating, don't we?
That's right.
So that's gonna be a better roof in and of itself, just from that.
Is the insulation material that you're talking about something like a fiberglass mat, or is it a spray foam insulation?
It's fiberglass mat. You probably could spray if you wanted to. We just have to look at that.
Look at the cost difference, so,
That'd be a cost difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I mean, that could be an option, one of the options in the bid
Could be an
package,
alternate, yeah.
because, I know my house has the foam insulation in it, and the value of that is improved in the same space that you're talking about, the insulation value just is multiplied, so if it's foam.
Yeah, just some benefits to it. They like the bats just because you can kind of install that as you're going. It's just a different construction sequencing thing, but it certainly is something that is doable, so.
Well, we'll have actually 2 layers of insulation. One is on there now.
That's
and
right.
This one.
Yeah,
Coming in, so
existing
we'll have double the
insulation.
insulation in there.
That's right.
The last question, I guess, is the flashing around where the roof and the building came together. These,
Yeah, all that has to be redone as well as part of this, or else you won't get a warranty. Essentially, they make you redo all of those termination points. So
and what kind of warranty will we have on it?
normally a 20-year, no dollar limit, water tightness warranty. I need to look at what it says about hurricane exclusions and, you know, what does our spec need to say? We have not done that research yet.
Yeah.
You know, but standing seam blocks together panels, we've done a few buildings with that in the coastal areas and really haven't had any problems. Of course, we hadn't had a hugely significant storm either, but I think you'll fare a lot better with a better roof out there, so.
Thank you for answering my question.
Sure. We will send some information probably to the Friday update if that's okay, to, you know, just with some better descriptions and photos.
This item, text of the item says we're gonna proceed with the investigation of the project. The recommendation here is to approve, to advertise, and accept bids, Mr. Adolphe. Is that really the language you want there?
It is, so, and then the board still has the option to make a determination whether they want to go forward with the project.
Then we're gonna advertise the bids on this motion.
We would have approval to do it. We're not gonna go do it tomorrow, but in a month from now, or whenever we're at that point, we don't have to come ask the board for a separate authorization.
Okay.
And that's really just to kind of help things flow
Just to get-
quickly. We're not trying to get around anything at all. That's just, you know, sometimes, oh, forgot we didn't have authorization, and then we've got to wait another month to.
And we're gonna need the full summer months to stage and do the work, because it's gonna be a longer contract than just the 2 months of summer.
It's not just gonna be a summer project, it's gonna run
Yeah, it's gonna overlap school
over
years.
into the school year.
And that's the other, that also limits your options, because we can't just go ripping off roofs, and we kind of really have to work on top of what's out there so that we can work those areas. Because it could be a 4 or 5 month roofing.
Figuring out how to stage it is another
Yeah.
challenge. What part of the parking lot are you gonna use?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a busy campus right now.
Any other questions from board members on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Unanimous, Ms. McGrath.
The administration has determined need to replace bleachers and sand and refinish and decking floors at Gautier High School and Pascagoula High School. Scope of the project will include replace existing telescopic bleachers with new telescopic bleachers. The existing bleachers have wood bench seating. Molded plastic seat modules are proposed for the new bleachers. Mr. Richard McNeil, JBHM Architect, has requested authorization to proceed with additional services required for this project to be advertised and bid. Budgeted costs are estimated between $420,000 and $480,000, including the ad alternate. Bids will be presented at a later date to the board for approval. Recommended board of trustees approve to advertise and accept bids for this Gautier High School and Pascagoula High School bleacher replacement project. Then this project should take less than 2 months per job on there. That's a long window.
It's not gonna take that long.
Yeah, but pretty short.
Including sanding down the floors
Yeah,
and
the floor refinishing, if you do that, you're about a month. If it's just the bleachers, you're about a week. So,
is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
Pascagoula-Gautier School District Athletic Department is requesting Board of Trustees to send a letter to the Jackson County Board of Supervisors requesting assistance in clearing the drainage ditch that runs beside the old Gautier Field House and behind the baseball field. It's recommended the Board of Trustees approve this request. And just so you know, Ryan is here to answer any questions you might have about, because it is that wetlands permitting area that we have spoke with engineers who said it's okay as long as we remain in the ditch and don't go beyond the extent of what the ditch is that's there to clean it out. Mr. Freeman's been working with Mr. O'Neill from the county to look at the specs, and who's the Board of Supervisors? Mr. Ken Taylor is our point of contact.
Yeah, he's probably a good guy to talk to. I need a motion on the floor for this item.
Move.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion, more discussion or information?
Is there any cost to the district if the county does the work? Do they charge?
Not that I know of.
When they did the high school project, they charged for the dirt, but they didn't charge for, it seemed like.
They've done it before, and I was gonna charge when they did it the last time they cleaned it out.
And I explained this wetlands issue, we can dig the ditches as long as we stay within
The ditch.
the ditch. Are we gonna be extreme with this ditch? Are we gonna go like way down to drain the land, or is this just to remove the growth that's occurred over?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the main thing, that the growth that's occurred through the settlement of dirt and particles and stuff that's
Yeah.
come through, and I think that's why the area is not draining like like it needs to, so we're gonna get that cleaned out, and I think that's really going to help us to be able to drain, especially from the old field house.
Yeah, everything, the old field house, the storage container for all of our, ATVs that we drag the fields with, back behind the baseball fields, all that section of campus drains into that area at the end. So if that's clogged up, then it doesn't matter what we're doing to our facilities up front on that side, we have nowhere to go with the water. So yeah, I think to speak to your question, Mr. Marks, nothing new, no removal of anything that, or any deeper than we were before. It's just that undergrowth has slipped up on us, and now it's stopping that entire side of the campus from draining after decent rain.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Unanimous, Mr. Rep.
Next item is naming of the Performing Arts Center. Basically, and Ryan can explain it more in depth, but this is what's going to be embedded in the rock on the facility. And I would recommend to the board that we name it, Belinda, you can help me out with the words, Pascagoula High School Performing Arts Center. That would be embedded. If someone wants to come back and name it after somebody at a later date, we have policy, Kelly, that prescribes that.
Actually, our policy is FDC, and it essentially allows you to recommend to the board the process for naming a school facility. The MSBA has a sample policy that has a little more detail. If you want to choose someone to name it after, we haven't adopted yet, but could do so in the future. So that's for if you use a person. And what I'm hearing is that it would be the PHS for a person.
I move.
This is on more or less a level across like we have up on the high school right now, right?
That's right.
Or on the
It's
Gautier High
just
School?
cast into what we call an architectural precast, so it's essentially a concrete panel. It's simulated to look like limestone type of panel, but it's cast into it. So that's it's not easy to redo later. We want to get it right the first time, so.
The name we recommended is Pascagoula High School Performing Arts Center. I move that we name it.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Unanimous, Ms. Novedale. Make all that fit up there. That 2 foot you gotta deal with.
Do a little redrawing this week. That's the fun stuff.
The important part to me is the Performing Arts Center. I know where I am. I got off onto the construction update to see what you had said there. Just a minute, let me get. I had to get back. We're down to, at that point, we're down to information reports, gentlemen. Tracy? First one they presented is the vandalism report. None for this month. And this is for the school year, right, Jana, from
Right, it's for the month, and then there's a total for this.
total losses as of September 30th is from the 1st of July.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, philosophy works. No discussion there. The next one is the discipline report. It's been worked on and worked on and worked on, and makes more sense every time we look at it.
It really looks good. Thank everybody for the work they've done on it. It kind of gives us a true reflection of what's going on. And the numbers are something we can handle rather than large numbers.
Okay. Next one's Brian's favorite subject. You do this report in about 30 minutes, right, Brian?
It's about right, yeah. Not that much changes from month to month, so sometimes longer.
Sometimes longer?
Just depends.
Are we on schedule with the Performing Arts Center and the new auditorium, or?
Yeah, last month, we were about 2 weeks behind, and they've been working Saturdays. I know they worked this past Saturday. We would normally meet this afternoon. We're actually meeting tomorrow afternoon because there's a particular subcontractor the general wanted to bring to the meeting, and he couldn't be here today, so we moved the meeting to tomorrow. So we'll get an update then. I would think they're still within 2 weeks. Just, what I normally do is I print the schedule they gave us last month, draw a line for today, and just based on photos and what I'm hearing, from the field, where are we? So they're there.
Okay, what about the Trent Line, Jim?
It appears to be on schedule as well. It actually has a roof on it. Now the main gym and corridor connector we're dried in. The front part of the building, there's still roofing, so that's gonna make a huge difference to get that done. But I'm pushing. I want that to be ready in January when the kids are back, which is what the contract says. So.
Speaking of the gym, I had a call from a concerned citizen about the color that was selected for Trent Lott's gym.
The blue.
The blue.
And I said, no, I said, that is block, that's a sealer that's been put on, and they're bricks. And I said, as soon as it's done, I'm gonna take you on a tour. It'll all be brick. I said, it looks like old shrimp boat out there with that blue.
It's funny. Sometimes that's pink, sometimes it's lime green. It just depends on each manufacturer's kind of their proprietary colors. So the blue kind of works in this town, but it's Pascagoula blue.
Did you speak to the engineers about the problem that we discussed last week?
Did. They heard about it.
You already heard about it.
We'll leave it at that. So,
Yeah,
What was the problem?
the lighting, the seat lighting. They omitted the seat
Didn't
lighting.
enough the wiring out of the,
Oh.
out of the slab,
yeah,
didn't have conduits in the slab for,
yeah, they heard about it.
ready to rectify that one?
There's no restitution on their part, though, is there?
Unfortunately, no. So, they'll do better next time, they say. So,
So it was on the plan, and it just
it was
wasn't
not on the plans, it was
Okay.
just never in there, so. Should have been on the plans.
Any other questions on the construction project? If not, we go on to the test security plan. That's,
To be in full compliance with testing requirements as set forth in Appendix F of Mississippi Public Accountability Standards, 2018, Mississippi Code 3716-4, Pascagoula-Gautier School District writes a district test security plan each year. Each school also has a security plan.
any major differences, Polly, on this one?
We have a new vendor coming on board for science, grades 5 and 8, U.S. history and biology 1. So we had QuestStar for all 4 of the subjects, and they didn't, apparently they didn't get the low bid. So anytime you go with a new vendor, there's a learning curve, and
Do they ship us the test directly, or is
well, it's all online.
it's all online?
But still, you know, when you're used to scheduling your students and scheduling your test sessions, and you know where to click and what to do, and it just takes more effort on everybody's part to learn the new vendor. It's the same vendor that uses the LOS, so, which is our, English language proficiency test that we give in March, but there are still some components of it that are not the same. We were really hoping we would stay with the same vendor. And of course, this year, we also, the NAEP testing, last year we didn't have any schools, this year we have 6. So that's just extra work. Now, when they come in, they're very professional, they bring their own people in, they bring incentives for the kids to do well, little trinkets and things like that. But Mississippi has actually done very well in that arena in the last couple of administrations. But those are extra, above and beyond.
This doesn't take a board approval, is it? Am I correct? This is just a,
And the board president will sign it, but it is an accountability standard that we have a test security plan in place.
okay. Thank you. Next item is 4C, the seal of biliteracy diploma endorsement.
Pascagoula-Gautier School District is committed to preparing every student who enrolls in our schools to graduate from high school, college, and career path ready. Students have the skills, capacities, and dispositions necessary to participate fully in the 21st century economic, scientific, political, cultural, and intellectual life of our global society. achieving high levels of academic competency in both English and at least one world language is an integral part of making the vision of student accessibility to, from success to reality. This is information item only, no action is required. But I'll be glad to make some comments if you'd like. And we have our two experts.
You were,
Well, I'm gonna get to them. First of all, it's a chance to be first, which is something that we really like in our school district, is being first. Secondly, it's something that this district should be leading the way on. And Dr. D'Angelo, if you'd like to explain what we're working on here.
I have Mr. Hector Barberena, who is our Spanish instructor at Pascagoula High School with me, and he and I have been working together, I would say, for about a year on this. We're going to be the first district in the state of Mississippi that offers this. Numerous states around us are already doing it, and we've actually are guiding MDE to offer it for the whole state. But I was going to let Mr. Barberena talk a little bit about it as well.
Well, basically, what we want is to promote the bilingual situation we have in our county and city. Most of the states around us have this seal. They promote not just the bilingual situation with all the students, but also help those that don't speak English as a first language to promote and increase that language that we also need in our school district. So this is not just to promote the bilingual situation, but also to help our ELL students to be aware that if they speak English and the other language they have in home, that also increase our market for industries and increase our market for jobs and increase their market for jobs and economical situation. Basically, this is like a motivator behind that to increase the language proficiency, not just in our English language, but also in another language. In this, what we're just doing basically is look at the other states, what the other states did, and what we're doing is copying somehow and adapting what they did to our school district and our needs. We already have in place 11 students ready to be sealed with this biliteracy seal, and we already lost several of those years before because we had not implemented this situation before. Our language, the AP Spanish, for example, and the English test, the kids are passing those tests. The kids are showing proficiency at that level, and we are not recognizing that situation on our students' bar. So that's the reason why we decide to look at this, investigate more, and pioneering our district and the state on this policy.
I'm saying go for it, because
Yeah.
if we already have students qualified, we have a program that's producing students, all you gotta do is put a stamp or a sticker.
A seal, yeah, stamp.
A stamp on your, she and I had a discussion, what is good, you gonna put a stamp on it, or you gonna really emboss the.
But it's a decision we can make later.
Right.
It's something that's not important as per se.
It's a good idea, in my book. So, that was an information item for us, and I'm glad you bring it forward and explain what you're doing for our students.
Thank you.
I hate to have another comment, but I'll be quick. I'd like to see us transfer away from possibly the word of Hispanic or but something like multinational. You know, with the students that we have are from all multitude of different countries and different dialects and different, you know, we probably have more than just Hispanic people in our, I'm reading occasionally something, about these school districts that are bragging about their multinational, and maybe that's not the term. I just remember it got away from the word that we use in our connotation. I don't know if it's possible that we could do that or not.
Well, we are, multicultural is the term that we typically use to describe a number of cultures and languages. Mr. Barberani used the example of the AP Spanish, but it can be German, Italian, Cambodian, Vietnamese, any other language that we have in our district they can show proficiency in to be biliterate. And then we'll be piggybacking with the career academies to be promoting this with the industry so that they know what they're looking at when they get a transcript that says that this student is literate in both languages or in 2 languages.
Just saying that as I'm reading, the school districts that feel that they have a pedigree and that they're better than a lot of other districts, which I think we qualify, frequently call themselves, and advertise and both, and use as part of their language, multinational, educational, exchanges and things like that. But that's an aside. That's all I had.
It would seem to me that the students that come to us with what we can now call ELL would have a leg up because they already know what I would call the foreign language. They got to learn English. When they learn English, they should be well on the road. All right, next one is our financial reports. And Ms. Grant has closed out the previous year, so all of these are now based on what our current budget is, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any questions or observations on these 3 reports? I'm always amazed when I go to statewide school board meetings, and I have fellow board members say, well, how do you get your reports? How do you know what's going on in the financial world? Like, their chief financial officer is hiding something, or I don't know, because they don't get the reports. I don't know how they get around that, but that's all right. Anyway, any comments on these reports? Okay. With that, we'll go on to item 5A, where we were talking about our board policies for Section E for us to look at this month. Any comments to turn into their administration on Board E, on Section E policies, or need to discuss any particular policy that, or piece of a policy that we read and took on barrage at?
I have a couple. Let me see if I can find them. It's hard to mark on here. I wish it was a little easier.
I just have one question on EBH on use of school facilities. It says the fee charge for the use of food service areas shall be in addition to the fee charge for the use of other areas of the building. I don't ever remember us charging anything to anybody, do we have a fee other than, I know that maybe when a church has been there, we charge them, but other than that.
If you recall, most of the time, whenever the recommendations come through, it'll have, no charge.
Right, that's why I just was wondering, do we charge? Even, because there's always no charge.
Since I've been here, we have not.
We kind of set a policy that if it's an educational experience for the kids, we'll support community involvement to bring a group in and do whatever they do. If it's a commercial involvement from somebody wanting to run a basketball thing and charge for it, then we charge the use of the facility. Find your...
Yes, I do. EDC, bus safety program. There's I guess there are two ways of doing this. My way is probably your least favorite, but I don't know that much about the school system. So I would prefer the administration recommending changes to the policies where I have a concern if it's necessary, and it may not even be necessary.
What paragraph do you?
But the comment that I have is, it shall be unlawful in third paragraph for a driver of any school bus, whether public or contract bus, to drive the said bus at a speed greater than 45 miles per hour while transporting students to or from regular routes. However, any such driver operating a school bus on other authorized trip shall not drive the said school bus greater than 50 miles an hour. I don't think that I don't know about our district, but I know when I'm on the highway, I see school buses going faster than 50. And it just seemed like maybe this policy was written back when speed limits were lower, or I don't know. Another issue I have is on policy EG. Says that exempt from bid requirements is our purchases of fire insurance, automobile, casualty, health, and liability insurance. Does that mean when we have flood insurance and wind insurance that we don't follow this, or do they fall in the same lines? I was just thinking that there are other insurances that maybe should be included in this policy. I was reading EFA, data breach prevention. To me, when I read about data breach, this seems to be more of someone breaking in and finding a written record. To me, it has become digital, and there are a lot of different issues with digital breach prevention, and this policy may or may not need to be updated, but as part of the policy, I would like for the board to be informed if we have a data breach related to at least digital, not someone stealing someone's social security number from a written record, but a more major data breach.
Or an attempted data breach.
Or an attempted data breach.
If we detect somebody trying to get to us, and I know I dealt with computer security and information security for several years, and figment of your imagination. You only know about it when you make a mistake.
Well, those are those are the three policies I have.
Okay.
Any other comments or discussions? All right. Thank you, Dan. No other board member items? Well, there is. Tracy said that wasn't in the bag that I had prepared when we handed it off at the side of the road. I got Sonny's, you have one?
You want my initials on it? Just-
Yeah, so you can keep track of it. Do you remember any of them that you had specific comments or objections to, or? I'll take these things and make up some comments, see what we're gonna send out. With that, we have, what, 3 items here to consider as executive items. 2 of them are transfer of students, and 1 is an expulsion of a student. So those, we need to discuss those and close the meeting, so do I hear a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.